by the end of this, just to have some better ideas of how to be effective when you're on the job market. Rethinking the job search, I'm very data focused. So we'll focus on some of the data points first so you understand the why of what I'm talking about. We'll focus on personal brand, actioning it, job search toolkit, and of course, questions and answers. It's going to be pretty interactive today. So just raise your hand. I cannot see your hand. It's on another screen. So if I'm looking to the side, I'm seeing if anyone's interacting. And Anita, please interrupt me or just let me know if we do have questions pop up.
Will do.
A little bit about me and why I'm the one talking to y'all today. My background is pretty straightforward. I went into this entire world of staffing and technology by being a tech recruiter. I did that for a couple of years, and then I started selling tech staffing within the ecosystem. About 3 or 4 years ago, I got pretty involved just in the networking scene. I got involved in the technology community here in Austin. I currently sit on 3 industry technology boards: Austin Sim, Austin ISSA, and then the Austin Community College IT Advisory Board, which really advises some of the leading companies that sit in Austin about what are the skill sets they're going to need and how are universities going to build those skill sets. So I'm hearing from experts really what are the future skills that we need and how do we achieve that? We're talking about the type of talent that they want to hire. So I've been in the tech staffing and talent world for a while, very involved in the community. So that's why I'm here talking to you guys about this today. I also work as a coach and an advisor for a lot of leaders within Austin tech space. All right. I promised data. I linked my sources at the bottom, so feel free to check it. The fact is, most jobs are found through networking, not online. A lot of these statistics are probably not entirely accurate because they're shadow job markets. So many jobs are never posted. None of it's just public data because none of it's being recorded. So a lot of the data points you see here are best estimates. Anyone who's applying online, 75% of resumes are just rejected and never even seen by a human. 5 applicants out of 250 actually get a face-to-face interview. When you look down towards the bottom, you'll see online applicants are hired 1 out of 152 cases. So you have a 0.7% chance of getting hired if you're just applying online per job. If you look down at the bottom, 1 in 16 referred candidates get the offer. So we're going to talk about the ROI of your time. Where are you investing your time to get the highest level of output? And when you're following these numbers and what we talk about in the next couple of slides, that's when we get to higher rates of success because you're doing the work differently and you're targeting those referred and referral jobs rather than just blindly applying online. How many of you guys feel like you've applied to like 50 jobs and not gotten any response? Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing hands go up, and that's completely normal. The fact is, when you're applying blindly online to jobs that are posted, a lot of those jobs aren't even existing anymore. They've been filled, the need shifted. So a lot of those jobs are like fake jobs, not necessarily as a like, let's steal your information type way, but the jobs go away, right? So the best way to apply, if you're going to apply cold online, is to apply directly through the company's site. Also, the applicant tracking systems, ATS is what recruiters refer to. They're showing the top 10 based on what is popping out. They won't even look at the 250 applicants that have applied to that job. Most of them will just look at that top 10. And if they don't see what they need, then they'll roll down to the additional candidates after that, the toolkit. How many of you have a resume? Awesome. So everyone knows when you're on the job market, you have a resume. How many of you update it for every single job that you apply to? Okay, I'll get into when to tailor it and when not to tailor it. And I've got a trick for you so you're not spending as much time on it, but you're still personalizing it to the jobs that you're applying to. As this is UX, how many of you have a portfolio? Okay, awesome. So it looks like about 3 hands. That's a great start. We're going to talk about portfolios. So we'll get into the resume just a little bit. I've got some tips and tricks just to kind of make your resume stand out on the next couple of slides. How many of you have an elevator pitch? And I mean, like when you walk into a room and someone's like, who are you? What do you do? Like, do you actually have a good response for that? Okay, I see a couple of hands up. How many of you have first thought, what am I trying to get out of this event before you crafted that elevator pitch? Okay, I still see a couple of hands up. The elevator pitch, I'm not going to go into too much about this later, but it's absolutely critical that you have some level of introduction about yourself, right? And that's going to change based on your environment, and that's going to change on what you're looking to get out of that environment. So if you're on the job market, you're going to want to be like, these are my superpowers. This is what I do. This is what I'm really good at. Walking into a networking event, you obviously want to be able to talk about yourself without like going in as a hard sell. So I'll talk about this throughout the presentation as well, but it's called your value statement, like your value proposition. The way that I recommend everybody craft their value statement is I am, I do, for business case. I am a UX designer. I create brands that are user-friendly for business case to drive traffic to the platform, right? Please do a much better job than I just did, but I hope that gives you a gist of like how to craft it. Your elevator pitch has to be crafted to the environment that you're walking into, and that should touch all of these aspects. LinkedIn and social, it's a critical point that you have to have updated. It has to match your resume. That is key. When you're looking at LinkedIn and social, that is what recruiters are going to passively find you on. So that's like free work coming to you. Also, it's what we're going to double check that you're a legit human on. So your LinkedIn and social have to be up to date and accurate. Do I see a question? Maybe. I see someone has their hand raised, but I don't know how to click on it.
It's what?
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I do have a question.
Oh,
When you say
okay.
like Instagram, Facebook type,
Yeah, so obviously LinkedIn is the one that's most job aware, right? Like when you're job searching, you assume people are going to check your LinkedIn. People are also going to check your socials. So anything that is open to the public, you have to assume is being checked. One of the big reasons for that is culture fit is a huge thing that any good recruiter is going to be checking. Restoring the planet and going green is one of their big missions. If you're anti going green on your socials, you're not a good culture fit, right? So they're going to check to make sure that you are the kind of person that meshes with their culture and their values and their beliefs. So you can lock your socials and then you don't have to worry about it as much. But if it's publicly on the internet about you, it's probably going to be checked by recruiters and the company. Culture fit is one of the biggest things that they're searching for. Your socials are going to be checked. So just keep that in mind. Everyone has a right to their free speech and to do what they want, but it could come into effect when considering you for a job. So your story box. This is one thing that I don't think many people actually have prepared. The easiest way to explain a story box is when you go into a job interview and someone says, what's your biggest weakness? You should be able to kind of spin off that weakness, right? That's a common question. Most people are prepared to answer. But how many of those other questions do you have prepared, right? Your story box should answer most of the classic interview questions. Looks like, what's your biggest weakness? Tell me about yourself. All of those common questions, you can Google them, pretty easy to find. You should have some kind of story box for it. Tell me about a time you failed. That's another super common one. You should also have these about like your heroic moments. If you're talking to someone at a networking event, you can pull out one of these story box items. That's a really great way to sell yourself without being like, I'm on the market, you should hire me. You can talk about like, hey, I had that exact same issue at my previous job and this is how we came over that. What kind of things have you guys tried in your environment? That's showing that you're a subject matter expert because you came out with this story ready to go. One of the things about a story box, most people have heard about this. I like the PAR method. There's also the STAR method. It's basically problem, action, result. So problem is, this is what was happening, the action I took, and then the result of that. You obviously want that to be a hero story for yourself. Two other things that I think are really powerful that people don't talk about within that PAR method of building a story box. One is data. I am a huge data fan. Putting data on it makes it feel more legit. I like percentages when it's, possible. It's a percent of like 20% above goal. We saved 10% of cost. whatever that looks like, adding in those data points is very impactful and it gives it a little more substance. It feels more legit when there's data there. And then the second thing is that besides data, there's emotion. People remember feelings. How do they feel about something, right? So, horror stories of this one time when the, entire thing crashed, or we had a really terrible product launch and this is what was wrong. Nobody understood where all the buttons were to click. What's the hero story of that, right? So creating feeling or emotion and, laughter is another great one. A funny story that also shows that, you're an expert and you saved the day. So story boxes are very, very powerful and you can use them in all these different environments, but most people know them as a way to prepare for your interview. Your portfolio for people that are in UI, UX, really being able to show your work. Your resume is your history. It says nothing about who you are, how you think, your creative style. A resume is a history. Like the best resume in the world is simply that. But a portfolio is a way to show how do you think about the problems? What are the toolkits that you have, basically? So we can get into that one a little bit more. And like I said, there's an entire presentation coming up on June 2nd for y'all to dive into the portfolio more. Your network. Everyone's heard the phrase, network is your net worth. I fully believe in it. As you saw from the data points earlier, 1 in 16 referrals will actually get the job. That rate of success is so much higher than any other on the market right now. Your network is going to put you in a different field because you're going to find jobs that don't exist on the internet, right? Like there's an entire shadow job market where if I'm hiring and the right person falls in my lap, why am I going to go through the process of interviewing a bunch of people and posting it online? If the right person falls into my lap and someone's like, hey, do you need an amazing UX designer? I'm going to be like, yeah, actually I do. Let me talk to them. My process is so much easier. There's no reason for me to post online. Your network is going to get you there. If I'm hiring for a job and someone I really trust comes to me and says, I know somebody, I'm just going to go for it. I'm like, I trust you. I'm going to see who this person is. I want to get to know them. So I'm going to get that interview at much higher rates than applying online. Because applying online, I don't know you. You could have a great resume, but there's 20 other people in my inbox that have a great resume too. That's not saying you're less qualified at all. It's just saying that when you fall in someone's lap via networking, your chances of getting that interview to really impress them with the knowledge you have is significantly higher. And once you get to the interview stage, your odds go up substantially, as long as you are a qualified candidate for the job, which in most cases you would be. So digging into the resume, a few of the biggest things that I see on resumes when I go through and I'll scrub a resume and I coach people on how to improve them are these main things. Align your keywords with the job description. Now, earlier, a lot of you guys said that you are customizing your resume to each specific job. That's fantastic, but it's very time consuming. One of the big things that I recommend is creating resume buckets. So I have an activity is red highlighter, green highlighter, and I'll show you how to create those job buckets and how to make sure you have resumes that are like 90% customized and ready to go that just need that last 10%. So prepping it that way is going to save you a lot of time while also allowing you to like hyper personalize it for the job and nail those keywords. Applicant tracking systems are not smart. They are keyword searches, right? So if your keywords don't match, it doesn't matter how good you are at your job, you're not going to pop. Unfortunately, that's what it is. But the great thing is knowing that you can actually target that much better and you can stand out when you're applying through an ATS. The next thing I see is people start with their bullet points and they're like, I engaged with cross-functional teams. That's a very weak action verb, right? Everyone knows start with actions, start with verbs, but like it has to be a strong one. You have to be, a leader, an innovator, right? Some of those much stronger words that show that you're taking action, that you're leading. And then the other thing is like your resume is not a group activity. I see the word we very commonly. If I see we on a resume, I have so many questions. I don't want to know what your team did. I want to know what you did. Starting with strong action words and like owning it. This is the place to really highlight every single thing you do. Do not be humble. This is not the place. The other thing is really tailoring bullet points to each job based on what you're applying for. That's very similar to the top one, but it's not just like copy pasting keywords. It's having an idea of this job, I'm highlighting these specific bullet points, right? So if I want to apply for a recruiting role, I'm going to highlight all my recruiting experience and leave all the rest out because the rest isn't applicable, right? If I'm applying to a business development role, well, that's all I'm going to focus on. Y'all don't need to know that I was a tech recruiter. That's not applicable, right? So really understanding your own experience in and out and being able to flip things quickly. Again, like I talked about the job buckets, we're going to get into that more because it's going to make this a lot easier. Data, I've said it before and I will continue to say it again. Percentages are one of my favorite things because again, they're industry agnostic. They speak very clearly. If you want to work in a very specific type of environment, then absolutely go for those specific KPIs and data points, right? You know,
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is my question because it comes up a lot when I mentor people or just conversations I've had. So UX has a unique problem in that we don't know what to call designers, whether they be UX designers, product designers, or UX/UI designers. Do you have a strategy for that problem with aligning your keywords? And then my other question, which a lot of my colleagues have like 10 plus years of experience and they're more manager or director roles, how would you tackle what the team did for those types of roles?
Yeah. So I'll focus first, I'll go into the multiple titles. That might have to be separate buckets because every company is going to call, again, designers. There's a lot of gray area in UX and UI, and there are a lot of terminologies. I think in tech that applies to a lot of roles, but definitely in this area. So what I would say is creating different buckets for the job you're applying for. Each job is unique, right? So if you're a UX product designer or a product designer that's really truly UX, you might need a bucket for that. I'll kind of talk about how to craft those buckets based on what you're seeing on the market. If you're applying to a product role, you want the word product in there strongly. The other thing is that titles are completely arbitrary. An equal job at companies could have vastly different titles. That is one of the challenges with keyword targeting. I will get into the buckets a little bit more because I think it's very applicable with things like this when you're applying to a product role versus a very technically designed focused role that's like front end development versus like design and strategy. As far as your other question of managers, you are still leading, you are initiating, you are managing the deliverables of your team. You are owning the team. I am managing the output. I am controlling the output as the team leader. So I would just say, you know, own the leadership capabilities of that, own the leadership, because that's a skill set, right? You can be hands-on and be involved. You could say, I led a team while being a hands-on contributor. You can get into the detail of that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay, perfect. You're going to have gaps on your resume. You can't make that magically pop up. Certifications, skills that you may not have. One of the ways to get around those keywords is to say, I'm pursuing X certification, or I'm pursuing learning this software or this technology, this tool. You actually have to be learning it, right? You have to stay honest on your resume. But if you're learning it and in your process of it, but you don't actually have skills to show for it yet, if you can't put it on your resume any other way, but you're learning, use the word pursuing. You're going to target for the keyword while remaining honest. So that's a way that I like to kind of break that gap. The next thing is maximizing your real estate. Should be relatively short. Yes, you can have a 2-page resume. That is standard now. It does not need to be 1 page, but maximize that real estate. Like you do need some white space, but like smush that font in. Basic is absolutely best. So yeah, just keep it basic, really maximize your real estate. Don't put a photo. We don't need a photo. It's on your LinkedIn. Hopefully, if not, fix that. Have it on your LinkedIn. LinkedIn essentials. Tagline is absolutely critical. I have a slide to kind of show you where the tagline is, but it has to be keyword centric, very much like a resume. LinkedIn is an applicant tracking system. It's going to target those keywords. When I, as a recruiter, am looking through LinkedIn, I'm searching for keywords, because LinkedIn, like every other applicant tracking system, is not smart. It's just looking for where can I find the words that you want to find, right? UX designer. That's what it's looking for. That's what it's going to pull. Your about section, again, I talked about the value proposition. That needs to be at the top of your about section. Start with the value proposition and then talk about why you're awesome after that. Portfolio. Your designers, guys, has to be front and center. Save that on your featured posts. Get references. The absolute best time to get references is right before you leave a job or right after, right? So if you've announced, hey, I'm moving to my next company, can I get a reference? Exchange references. Get those on LinkedIn so they're public. That builds you a lot of credibility. One thing I see about people getting references is they just go for their managers. I want to see 360. I want to see your manager. I want to see your peers. I want to see the people under you. I want to see clients that you've worked with. I want to see vendors that you've worked with. I want to see that 360 all around, like you're really good at what you do and everyone likes working with you. If your boss likes you, that's awesome. But if your peers don't like you, that's going to be problematic in my environment. So when I see that everyone of different caliber has given you, references, that says a lot more to me than just getting it from superiors. So I recommend getting that from all around your network and your environment. The other thing you can do with references is like, be very clear about what you're asking for, right? A reference isn't very valuable if they're like, they were so nice. No, like talk about the impact that was made. Ask them what you be like, hey, can you write me a reference and specifically mention like the impact of this project? That would be huge. The more specific they can get, the more impactful they are.
Questions.
Okay.
So Lance's question is, do you recommend abbreviating your experience if you're an older applicant?
Okay.
Especially your oldest experience.
I would say focus on what's most relevant, depending on how long your experience is, right? I would say anything 10 to 15 years old. If that's multiple jobs, you can just title, company title, and dates of employment. If it's past 10 to 15 years, if you've worked at the same place for 10 to 15 years, stack the other stuff below it. So if I was a UX designer for 10 years and then I took a break and I worked at a daycare, and then I came back to being a UX developer, smush that daycare one down. I just want to see, hey, I worked at a daycare from this to this, maybe 1 or 2 bullet points, and then elaborate. Use your real estate to really focus on what you need for this job specifically. So if it's older experience, smush it at the bottom, title, company, days that you were employed there. If it's kind of in between, go ahead and smush that down and really focus on the outsides that are more relevant to the current role that you're applying to. I hope that made sense.
There's another question. So Cassie's question is, would you start with the most relevant or impressive experience, even if it's a job or 2 ago, to catch the recruiter's eye? Or do you just go it straight chronological?
Chronological is best, but there's a type of resume. If y'all haven't seen this or looked at it, it's really good for people that have kind of spread out experience or it's not very intuitive. It's called a skills-based resume. It breaks down like you will have the history on one side, like the chronological order, but the resume, instead of having a job title, will say leadership, and it will talk about the leadership, and then you'll cut and paste the bullet points from all the different leadership stuff into that. And then UX design, you'll pop it there. Look it up if y'all haven't seen that yet. They can be really effective for people that don't necessarily have the copy paste experience. Like if I want to be a project manager and I'm a kindergarten teacher, a skills-based resume might be a better fit for me because I don't have any experience being in project management. I've got every single skill. But if you read my history, it might not feel that way because you'll get distracted by the job title rather than the skill sets. Chronological is best if you can. If not, skills-based is a really good second best, and it's becoming more accepted. At first, people were super confused, but I think it's become more accepted in the market now. I hope that helps.
Jessica's question was, how does the resume buckets work if you're, I'm assuming he should be in online portfolio, only mentions one job title? So do they need to match if you're keywording your job titles?
It's okay if they're different, but you really want to target the keywords. So if on your online portfolio, you have like one, let's say you're a designer, right? I would highlight all of the keywords on your portfolio where you can. They do need to match. You can highlight certain areas more so than others, right? Like if you only want to work in designer roles, you're going to be a little more limited because there's a lot of job titles that are actually designer roles, but they're not going to reflect that title per se. Matching is critical. It has to align across your different platforms and maximizing the keywords. The biggest impact you can make, throw your net as far as you can while also being realistic about what you want. It's really good to be pointed, but you do have to spread and get all those keywords to really make sure you're having the biggest impact for your time of where you're applying. The last thing I'll say on LinkedIn is really just post with purpose. The way that you engage on social for your network is absolutely critical. You have to engage with people that are in the UX community. You have to comment and like on their posts. Don't just do it to engage. Do it when you honestly like it. Post intuitively, show your expertise, highlight your skills, take advantage of the fact that you can build a brand there and people can find you passively.
Maya has a question for LinkedIn.
Okay.
Do you have any suggestions for posting content once you already have a job? So you're not actively job searching, but you still want to remain active.
Absolutely, still post. Get creative with it. I think one of the biggest things that you can do is like creative posts, unique posts, posts that are like different. That's what's going to go far. Like play with the algorithms. Some post do really well, some just flop, no matter how much effort you put into it. But like show your creative side, fun with it. Highlight things that you've learned. All of that is going to go really far, and it's going to make your employer be like, heck yeah, that's my person, right? They're going to be proud of it. So you can still build your brand and your reputation while at a job, and you should. That is the best time to be doing it. Don't wait until you're on the market. But yes, posting on LinkedIn, I 100% feel like you're building your brand, you're making your company look good because you work for them. Overall, it's a win all around. Digging into LinkedIn, for those of you that don't necessarily know what a recruiter sees, can y'all see my mouse? Ooh, you can. Okay. So this section right here, this is all we see when I decide I want to click on your profile. So this right here is your tagline. I highly recommend doing keyword searches on that. That should highlight the jobs you want to pop for. The skill sets you want to pop for should be in that tagline. That's what we see. Clean profile photo, where you work, where you went to college, your tagline. That's it. That's how we decide if we want to click on you. That tagline is absolutely critical. Moving to...
There's 2 questions.
Okay.
Wagner's question is, what if my previous jobs were not related to web development or coding and it has mostly been a hobby? How should I fill in the skills section?
Okay. Under the skills section, show the skills that you have. Like if you've been practicing it as a hobby, highlight those skills. You're not lying by saying they're skills. Like just make sure they're filled out, and even if they're not applicable to like the job that you've had, that's when I would say a skills resume might be really powerful. That's when your portfolio also is going to come in really handy. It's going to show that like, just because I haven't been in this world doesn't mean I'm not good at what I do, right? I mean, you can be phenomenal and it can be a hobby. So your portfolio is going to be much more critical in instances like that.
The next question is, Andreas would like to know, so say you're a developer, but you're really interested in a specific industry. Should your posts and projects be more focused on that industry? And if you have some courses about that industry, are those valuable?
Absolutely. Anywhere that you can show your knowledge, absolutely do it, right? If you can learn about the industry, some industries are highly regulated. Showing that you understand accommodations and accessibility in certain environments is critical, right? If you're in healthcare, you're going to need to understand accessibility at probably a different level. If you're in finance or banking, that's going to have very specific needs. You can also look at the vibes, right? Like, what does that environment look like? How do they design? Look at that and highlight. It isn't, hey guys, here's what I've been learning, or check out this project that I did. Absolutely post about it. Take advantage of every single opportunity you have to highlight your expertise and even your interest. People want to work with people that care. I can't pay you enough as an employer to care. So if I can hire for that, knowing that you're going to work harder, that's one of the most critical things that an employer can hire for. Not everyone agrees with that, but a lot of companies are moving to that, which is why I said the soft skills are really critical in this environment. I'm going to move on to the next slide. At the bottom of this, you can see my analytics. Just keep those numbers in mind because we're going to address them in a couple of slides. The profile views, the post impressions, and the search appearances. Every single person can see that on their own personal LinkedIn. So just kind of keep that in mind.
We have a question about LinkedIn.
Sure.
As it is saying that he's open to moving to another city for work. Do you recommend that he list his location as just United States instead of the city where he's currently located? Or does that hurt more than help?
It's going to depend on the recruiter. If I'm looking to hire someone in a specific city and you're not in that city, you're not going to pop in my searches. So if you're not listed as like Colorado, I'm not going to find you. I would just simply put at the top of your about section, looking to relocate to Colorado. That's probably the best way you can find it. Or even there's really no easy fix for it because I'm a big believer, like always be honest. So you can't say you live in Colorado because that's not true. That could be deceptive. You're going to get creative with that one. Send me a LinkedIn message after and we can kind of brainstorm a couple of things about that. But yeah, it is hard to relocate. So looking on your LinkedIn essentials here, your portfolio. This is my friend, Carla. She is amazing. She's brand new in UX. She has made some of the most creative posts that I've seen, and I see a lot of people's LinkedIn. I work with a lot of job seekers. To check her out on LinkedIn. She was getting into UX. I believe she came from healthcare, right? Like she was a physical therapist, I think. She came up with the most creative ways to find a job and be seen on LinkedIn. She posted her portfolio. She posted mock-ups of all these things that she did in her free time to show that she was open to learning, to show her skill set, just her style of designing as well. Like from here, you can see her style. She's bubbly, she's light. And for certain brands, that's exactly what they want. That's super attractive to them. And it's also her way of attracting the right company for her. She created these very funny little videos of how terrible the job market is. It did pretty well, and a lot of us engaged with it. So just creative little ways that you can stand out. The job market sucks. It's okay to highlight that sometimes, but do it in a fun, unique way where you can really grow your presence. And then of course, on your featured section, you have to highlight your portfolio. It is critical if you want it to be found. The go to my website link, you can do that. People aren't going to click on that. I'm going to be honest. You need it to be featured on your featured posts. If you don't know how to do that, just start at the top of your post. One of the biggest things that a portfolio has to do, in my personal opinion, as someone who's been on the recruiting side, it has to show how do you think? What kind of changes do you make? What is your process? It has to show your design style. It has to show so much more than just pretty pictures, right? There's so much that goes into UX, right? You need to highlight how many skills that you have, right? From mock-up to research, every single stage, highlight it. Explain why you did things the way you did. That is more powerful than just being like, look at my pretty pictures and look at the style. Even as a designer, you have to know why you're making the choices you're making. Like you can just Google portfolio and you'll find a whole bunch of really amazing ones, all very unique and different. And Ryan C. Robinson, I pulled this off the internet, but I gave credit. I'll send this out after if you want to check out any of these. I recommend every single person have a portfolio to show their knowledge, experience, their style of working. This is the human side of your job search. Again, your resume is your history. This is who you are, how you think. This is the soft skills. This is your personality. This is where people can actually know you. And it makes it so much better for people that are looking to work with humans and people they like. This is a great place to find that. All right, building your brand. I have an entire, very long presentation just on branding. It's one of my bread and butter. It's one of my specialties. I come from marketing. That's what my degree is in. That's what my specialty is in. The concept of what is a brand? How does it make you feel? When you think of your favorite brand, whether it's like Sephora or Nike or a sports team, it elicits feelings. You as a person are your own brand, whether you know it or not. Think about your boss. Close your eyes and think about your boss. You probably have very clear descriptive words of that person, how they look, how they speak to you, how they interact with you, their presence when they're in a meeting. All these things about them build up their brand. And every single person has a brand. Who knows what your brand is? It could be exactly what you want it to be. It could not be. The biggest thing about the brand is, how many of you have heard of the pie method? Can y'all do a show of hands if you've heard of the pie method? So the pie method is performance, image, and exposure. Performance is only 10% of why people get hired through referral or promoted at a company. 10% is performance. 40% is image. What do people think about you? The image, that's your brand. Exposure is even knowing that Danita exists. If I don't even know she exists, she's not getting a call for a job offer. 50% is exposure. That's why being present on LinkedIn and networking and doing those things is key. You are missing 50% of your opportunities if people don't know you exist. The next 40% is, what do they think about you, right? If I know who Danita is and I have the perfect job for her, but my image of her doesn't match in my head because maybe I don't know that she's really good at that thing, I'm not going to call her because I don't think of her when I think about my need to fill this job, right? And that's for anything. That's promotions, that's finding a new job, that's new opportunities, right? So if I don't have the image of her to fill that opportunity, she's not going to get the call. Now, if I know who she is, she's not very good at her job, 10%, that last 10% is performance, which is pretty shocking. When I was looking at this data, it all makes sense, but it's only 10% performance. You have to perform, right? Like, you have to have high quality. But think about that. When you're thinking about why your brand is so important, think about those data points and think about how many opportunities you're missing because your brand doesn't reflect what you want it to reflect. Okay, I'm not going to hammer that anymore. Obviously, I love that topic. Branding is my big thing. The next thing you need to think about is, like, what is your personal brand? You can't answer that yourself. Call the people you know, call your trusted friends, call your colleagues, call people that you want to know about your brand and be like, hey, when you think about me, what do you think about? What am I good at? What do I look like? So ask the people you know. Don't prep them. Just be like, what is my brand? And have them give you answers. Then you need to define your own and see if it matches. If it doesn't, you got to make some changes. But that's great because now you know where the gaps are. Once you have a crafted brand, it takes time. It's like a living document. It's going to evolve and change just as you do. But once you have that kind of set and you know what you want to be, what brand you want to put out to the world, you need to actually action that, right? Value first. The biggest thing I see is when people are on the market, they go to networking events and they're like, I'm on the job market. Are you hiring? We don't get married on the first date. We don't want to rush it. You need to get to know people. You need to provide value first. It is, how can I help you? What can I do to support you? What can I learn from you? Provide value first. Build those relationships authentically as yourself. Relationships don't pay you back in a couple of weeks. It's very rare. It has happened on occasion, but it's pretty rare. The relationships that you pour literal years into are the ones that are going to pay you in dividends, right? Your relationships, when we're talking about your network, that is your family. That's your friends, people you went to college with, people within your company, people through networking events like UXPA. It's your entire brand. It's not just professional, right? For any of you that have kids, the kids that your kids play with, like, what do their parents do, right? That's part of your network, whether you're acting on that or not. My kids go to school with some really bright people from Apple and Visa. It took me 4 years to finally ask one of my son's best friends' mom. I was like, well, what do you do? And we started talking and I was like, oh, I had no idea all these years. So ask those questions, like, be intentional about it, but do it with a value first approach, not a what can I get out of this situation or this event or this conversation? People can see through it and you will burn bridges quickly. So please, if you take anything from that, we don't get married on the first date. That's the biggest thing to remember. The next thing is consistency. If you actually want to build a network, you have to show up consistently. Going to a networking event one time is an amazing start. But when you find your group, when you find your tribe that you really mesh with, show up consistently. Relationships take a long time to build. People are not going to remember you because they met you at one event like a year ago. They're going to remember you because they see you regularly every single month. You show up to this event, you get to see people, and it becomes easy to go. It's catching up with friends. Not every event is for you, and that's totally okay, but find the groups that are. The next thing is really just like personalize it and focus on actually meeting people out in the wild, like out of your house. I love virtual events. I think they're great. They're awesome for learning, but networking should be started in person, maintained online, right? Meet in person, start in person. And if you meet on LinkedIn, grab a coffee, make it in real life. That's where relationships actually connect and deepen. So whenever possible, really connect with people over coffee, over lunch, and take it to that next level where it feels more genuine and authentic.
Yes. How
Okay.
frequently should we post on LinkedIn? Is it okay doing it daily?
It's okay to do it daily. I've ebbed and flowed and changed my ways of posting a lot over the past couple of years. I would say every other day is probably plenty. I have times when I post every day and sometimes I feel like it's a little too much. Also, the big thing is staggering the types of posts that you're making. Like if you want to do a weekly highlight on Sunday and then you want to do sharing an article on Tuesday, right? Just mix it up. I feel like if you're going to post really often, you've got to mix it up a little bit rather than the same types of posts. Event highlights and recaps are fantastic. Sharing news articles and resources is great as well. Highlighting things. People love a good selfie. I'm not a huge fan of, it's not Instagram, to be clear, but a selfie gets a lot of engagement. And it's not about the engagement, it's about the quality of the post. But when you're trying to grow your presence, having 1 or 2 posts a month that have a photo of you, it makes it more personal. Like it makes it more engaging. If you can take a photo in an event with a group and be like, hey, I had such a great time at UXPA. What an awesome group of people to meet. That could be the whole post. I would say once every other day is plenty, but if you're going to post every day, you got to mix it up.
Now, I think a lot of people have a problem with coming up with content ideas for what to post and still keeping it professional related and not turning it into Instagram. Do you have any tips of that?
If you're struggling to come up with content, go to ChatGPT. Ask it to write you an entire month, a content plan for a month, right? And then use it to write the content. The beautiful thing about ChatGPT is like, yes, it has to be you. Please edit what it pops out and make it actually, authentic, genuine, honest, check the data, all of that. But absolutely lean on AI. Like content creators are a full-time job for a reason. It's a lot to create. So lean on AI where you can. Resharing a post, that's content. You don't have to create it all yourself. Again, sharing a document or an article or some valuable resource, it doesn't have to be a long post. It can be like, hey, I found this, wanted to share it with my network. I found X point really insightful. That could be the whole post.
Cassie has a question about formats on LinkedIn posts. Do you find that any formats look repetitive? When I have it clean up my ideas sometimes, it formats it in an organized but impersonal way.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for that? They have more images or less.
Yeah, you can work on tailoring your prompt for ChatGPT, but the other thing is really like it's going to pop out a very scripted response. The format is going to be repetitive. The emojis always give it away because it pops it out exactly the same way. So you can say things like, don't use emojis. It's totally okay if you want to use ChatGPT. Most people can. But yeah, have it do the hard work. Have it write for you and then edit, right? Just like have it craft everything and then you just make it sound like you. Like if I'm reading your LinkedIn post and I know you in real life, it should sound like you. Does that make sense? When you're reading someone's text, you can hear it in their voice. That's what your post should sound like. They should be written like you, like a human. but have it do the legwork. Any other questions?
I don't see any other questions.
Okay. And then the one other thing I would add is any photo, video, document you can add goes really far as getting engagement. And always start with like a catchy tagline at the top. Again, AI can draft those for you. Think of a catchy headline and it will come up with some. Actioning your brand. I kind of already talked about this. I'll kind of speed up the conversation, but essentially show up to events in person, show up to conferences and networking events. Long story short, meet in person wherever possible, meeting virtually, whether it's LinkedIn, social media, events like this that are hosted online. They'll give you really great educational opportunities and allow you to connect with people, but take it offline wherever you can. Human interaction is the biggest thing that's missing, and it's going to deepen those relationships substantially. Networking tips, prepare, know what you want to get out of it. That goes into ROI. Do I want to just meet some new people and have fun? That's awesome. That's completely valid ROI. Do I want to meet 2 potential hiring managers? Valid ROI. So think about what investment do you want out of the time you're going to spend. Having a drink with a couple of new friends is a very valid thing. It doesn't always have to be work. Relationships are built over very casual conversation. Don't try to press yourself too much. Once you know that ROI, prepare. Look into the group. See who else is going. Like on Meetup and a lot of other groups, you can kind of see who's going. If you're new to that group, my best tip is to reach out to the organizers, right? Like if I've never been to UXPA and I was a little nervous, I'd reach out to Stanita and I would say, hey, I'm coming. I've never been. Can we connect when I get there? She's going to introduce me to the right people. She wants me to be involved in the group. Usually the organizers want to, and they want to grow their group. They want to grow their presence. So that's a really easy way. Bring a buddy. You can always bring a buddy system. It can be a friend. It doesn't have to be someone in the same space as you. The other thing for that is it's going to hold you accountable. You can't be tired and ditch your buddy. If you're nervous, you can also walk in together and kind of break the ice until you start to know people. Up is a really easy way to get into networking if you're nervous. It's online.
Lance has a question. How do you pick the events that will yield the biggest return on investment for what you want?
I would say 1, talk to the other people that you know in your network, ask for referrals from people that are in a similar role as you and what they're looking for. AustinTechEvents.com is a website that I run. It gathers as many networking events that I can find online. It's groups, conferences, and anything in between. Start there. Try all of them. Go to as many as you can, and you'll find the group that sticks with you. Every single group has their own vibe. They attract different types of people. You'll find the group that makes you feel comfortable, that makes you feel better. That's your group. I might find that in a different group than you do, and that's great. That's why we have multiple in our community. Sometimes you just got to try a few. Austin Tech Events, talk to your network and your community, just try new things. The best thing is if you go and you absolutely hate it, make yourself a commitment. I just got to go for 10 minutes, and then if I hate it, I can leave. Great. You did it. You got there. You gave it a good shot, and it wasn't for you, and that's totally okay. When I was learning how to network, I was like, I just have to go for 10 minutes. Walking in the door is always the hardest part, I promise. And if the vibes aren't right, just go. It's okay. Like, you don't have to stay. You don't have to commit for the full 2-hour event. And then cross-functionally network. People are very good at, oh, I'm a UX designer. I'm going to go to UX events. You got to go to product events, project management events. If you're a front-end developer, a CSS event, right? Like, there's networking events and groups for everything. Go to marketing groups, go to data groups. It all is relevant. And when you go to those groups that you don't necessarily fit exactly in, you're going to be the only one there that does that. And that is absolutely a skill set. That's an asset, right? Like, if they're talking about, we actually need a UX designer for this platform we're coming up with, and you're like, huh, how convenient. I'm the only UX designer here. You're going to hear about the opportunities from people that don't necessarily have their guard up. A product manager, they're going to know a lot, right? Your back-end coder, they could be straight up honest, like, yeah, our front end sucks. We need help. Golden opportunity, that's the shadow job market that I was talking about earlier. There are so many jobs that are never posted. People just know they have pain points. And if you happen to meet them at the right time and you're like, hey, what have you thought about this? Or could we fix this? You're kind of selling yourself in that moment for a job that is kind of perfect for you with no competition. So cross-functionally networking is critical. And I recommend it not when you're on the market, but before, because those relationships take time. When you're on the market, keep showing up, right? Absolutely keep showing up, but you have to invest ahead of when you need it. Sell your ideas, sell who you are as a person, sell the value that you can bring, and then finally follow up afterward, wherever applicable. One of my really good tricks for this, if you go to like a conference or someone is speaking, if you're at an event where there's a speaker, one of the things I like to do when I connect and follow up afterward is as they're speaking, I'm writing down something that I'm like, that was a really good point. So I'll write it down. And when I follow up, I'll follow up with a specific point. I'll send a message along the lines of, hey, thank you so much for your time. This was really valuable. I got a lot out of this point. Really thank you for that, blah, blah, blah. So noting very specific points seems to get a really high return and much higher engagement. One, hopefully you did actually learn something valuable. And two, you've got something to follow up with. So yeah, those are my biggest networking tips. And again, they work for conferences, casual groups, organizations, and all of that. High level takeaways, and then anyone that wants to stick around for questions. But yeah, high ROI activities. Your time is valuable. Focus on the things that are going to provide you value in bigger quantities. Like you can apply online. That's part of the game. You've got to play that side, but spend less time there and spend more on building your network. Know your brand and action it. Talk to people in your network and be like, when you think of me, what do you think of? It should align with what you want them to think of. And if not, do your gap analysis, find out where you need to meet that. Crafting your network intentionally and authentically takes time to build. Start today. It's going to pay you off in 2 to 3 years. I'm just being honest and realistic, guys. It's not going to pay off today. It's going to take time, and you have to show up authentically. If you don't, it's not going to give you the value that you want from it. People can see through when you're looking for something, and then you disappear when you find your job. Going to be completely honest and blunt on that. Creating your toolkit, hit all of those points I talked about earlier. Your story box, your portfolio, your LinkedIn, they work together, right? When you've got 10% of the equation, you're not going to do it with just a resume. You have to have the entire package, and it has to grow and develop as your skill sets change. Your brand has to change as you do. That's a good thing, right? You should be learning new things. You should be growing and evolving. And so the tools that you're using, like your resume, your portfolio, and the brand that you're putting out into the market, they have to reflect who you are and that growth. So that's it. That's my LinkedIn if y'all want to connect. But then we can just get into some questions if you guys want to. If anyone has any questions left.
Jessica, go ahead.
Yeah, I was a little unclear on what you were saying earlier about aligning your resume buckets to your portfolio. If I say I'm a product designer on my resume and then my portfolio says I'm a UX UI designer, is that the worst thing ever? I guess it would be helpful to see an example of that or understand how to infuse those keywords or how recruiters match keywords on a portfolio.
Yeah, I will send this to Danita, and I'm going to add in an additional slide to go into the details on some of that.
Okay.
So basically, let me explain my red highlighter, green highlighter activity and how it does that. So if I find 5 job descriptions that I really like under a single title, that's critical. You have to go product designer or UX designer. Those different titles are going to give very different search results. So find 5 or 6 job descriptions that you really like, pop them into ChatGPT and ask them to find the keywords. The job title is going to be critical here. Depending on what you do, that's going to change based on industry, job, and all the things. So keep all of that in mind. So let's say I'm looking in healthcare product designer. Let's say that's a very UX focused job. Pop that into ChatGPT. It gives me my most common keywords against the 5. Doing one is going to give you a skewed result. So you want to get a population of about 5 to 6. That's a one resume for you to craft specifically for those keywords. For, again, the niche bucket of healthcare product designer. If I want to do UX designer in finance, That's a different bucket. I'm going to go through the exact same activity. I'm going to find 5 to 6 job descriptions for being a UX designer in finance space. Pop that into ChatGPT. The keywords that it gives me go straight to that resume. So then when you have, let's say you have 4 different buckets that you want to hit. When you've got those 4 resumes pre-drafted, the work you're going to do on each of them to tailor them exactly for the job is less because you're 90% of the way there. So knowing those keywords on the different job titles, the different industries, niche skill sets, for example, that might fall into your world, having all of those into like those resume buckets, instead of crafting a new resume every single time you apply for a job, you're taking the bucket that you've got and you're tailoring 10%.
Yeah, the buckets make sense. I guess I just personally get lost on like if my portfolio needs to match exactly to that specific resume and I'm applying within like a couple of different buckets where I have a hard time of like, do I need to change my portfolio to match this as far as a title goes? Like if one position says UX UI and another is product design and you have product design on your portfolio, does that matter?
Jessica,
Sorry, go ahead.
I have a
Danita.
question. What platform are you hosting your portfolio on? Are you limited by the number of pages you're allowed to have?
No.
Because Dan Mall has what I consider a kind of intense view, which is for every job you should have an individualized portfolio. But instead of going that far, maybe you just have 3 versions of your portfolio with different job titles on them. So if that makes sense, but
Okay.
I would say you can, so I like that we kind of disagree, and I think that that's good because you should always have multiple points of view. I would say keep the one portfolio, but when you're introducing yourself, introduce yourself as a UI UX designer and a product designer. Introduce yourself both ways because you're going to hit both keywords. And then the resume is telling the truth and it's matching.
Okay.
You're just highlighting the skill sets, right? That's what I would do when I built out my portfolio, which is not UI UX. That's what I did. I said, here are my 3 job titles, right? I said, I do, IT strategy. I do this, this, and this. So I said, Cat Rector, and then my boom, boom, boom job titles underneath. And then when you get into my portfolio, you understand why I put those, right? It's a good reflection of the actual work that I do. And you see, oh, this is why she said she's, IT strategy. This is why she's this. So you can feel it when you get into my portfolio. But on that homepage, it's like obvious as heck. This is what I do, if that helps. That's what I've done myself. But yeah, it has to match. And that's probably the easiest way to make it match. Does that help?
I think so. It's giving me some ideas, something to think about. So thank you.
Yeah. And hopefully a lot of the keywords that you're pulling on that red highlighter, green highlighter activity overlap. There should be a lot of overlap just based on like the type of role that you want to apply to. It should be relatively niche, that there should be a good amount where you're not like 25 main keywords. Hopefully there's like 15 total between all of the job titles.
Okay. Thank you.
Danita actually pulled up a good point on her comment. On your value statement, you can say, I'm a UI UX designer for product design teams, for business case, right? So you can craft your value statement to kind of include a lot of those keywords to really highlight what you do and who you work with.
Okay.
Any other questions?
yes, there is a plan to do that. I don't know if Kat would like to volunteer to do that, but we were planning on having a portfolio, and I suppose we could also lump in LinkedIn because it's kind of your online resume review in an in-person event. When that event will take place, I'm not sure of because I was concerned about these 5 virtual events first. I'm thinking it might be in the fall just because a lot of the students are now on summer break, and it would probably be more helpful for the junior designers to attend the event in the fall. But if all of the senior designers would prefer us to have 2 separate events, feel free to mention that in the event survey and I will schedule 2 separate events if you would prefer that. But yes, we do plan on doing that. Kat, I don't know if you'd be available to do LinkedIn profile reviews.
Depending on the date.
Okay.
So Sarah, I saw your question come in. Should relevant projects go first or job and experience go first? I would say generally in the classic resume style, it's chronological, highlighting those. If you have the opportunity to link your portfolio, definitely highlight those in your portfolio. You have cover letters as well. Some people don't read them. Some recruiters love them. I would say keep it chronological unless, again, you're coming from a totally left field and the only experience you have is skills that you've gained from personal practice. And then you should do a skills resume. It's going to put you in a better light than a chronological history. But yeah, job chronologically is the best way to go unless you don't have any relevant job history. Sonia?
Before you get to Sonia, as a question as well, which was, as a UX researcher, how important do you think it is he link his portfolio on LinkedIn?
And if you want passive opportunities, and that's the goal, right? You want people to come to you. If I'm a recruiter and I'm looking at your resume, the next place I'm going, if I didn't already find you on LinkedIn, is LinkedIn. Getting to look at your portfolio is critical. The way you do that is you make a post and you're like, hey guys, here's my portfolio. Please make it sound better than that. And then the 3 dots on the top right of your post, click on that and then favorite and put it into the featured posts. So make a post and then feature it at the top so that it's really easy to find, and you want to make sure that it's the most relevant and easy to spot thing on your LinkedIn, but pretty critical.
Sonia, go ahead. Sorry.
Hey, Kat, thanks for your help tonight in answering these questions. I have a 2-part question because some of us have a lot of experience being a domain expert. So for me, I worked a lot across different sectors within healthcare. So health, wellness, public health. That experience is highly relevant to the things I'm going after. So I'm wondering if what you're calling a skill-based resume is a hybrid where you put your key accomplishments, like maybe 3 that are really relevant up toward the top. And then you go, and then another question related is, in the portfolio, can we also provide a deck, which we can tailor a lot easier for these different types of bucket jobs rather than just an online presence? Thank you.
Absolutely. Popping key accomplishments at the top is fantastic. One of the best things about being a UI UX designer and coming from the field is you understand the end user. That is a huge asset in the healthcare space, understanding whether you're, it's the end patient, like literally the patient, or if it's the nurses, the doctors. Understanding the viewpoint of where they come from and what their pain points are makes you an exceptionally stronger designer. Highlight that every single time because they can't just buy that experience. They have to find someone who's really lived it and truly understands it. Sell that very strongly, especially on your portfolio. You want to show that you know how the end user thinks and also the niche things within that environment and within the industry. So yes, the accomplishments at the top is fantastic. And then going into the chronological order, you can also start with skills at the top and then go chronologically. If you want to go in that order, you can do a summary. You can, at the top, you can give a summary of, hey, I come from healthcare, but this is why I'm moving into UI UX design. Keep it short, sweet. Keep it really to the point. You don't want to go into like an introduction about yourself, but that's another option as well to really highlight like the value that you're bringing from your background. Can you ask that second question again? I feel like I might have missed part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about the different buckets. So let's say we want to do product strategy, and that's not necessarily just found in a product strategist role. It might be in a product manager or product owner, or it may be in a product designer, depending on what it is. And trying to have that be tailored for language, like what Jessica was asking about earlier, it might be easier to do it in like a deck version of the portfolio rather than an online one, or at least that's what I'm finding to be true. So how would we highlight that on our LinkedIn as opposed to like an online, more static kind of version of a portfolio.
Make a post with, like, you can post a document and you can actually do it that way. It can link on LinkedIn the exact same way. As far as like the type of portfolio you use, listen to your gut. Again, I am not a UI UX portfolio expert, but if you think something highlights your skill sets better, do it. I can check on LinkedIn, but I'm pretty sure that you can post like a deck as a LinkedIn post and then just feature it the same way you would a portfolio, whether it's a website link, a PDF document. You should be able to share all of those as a LinkedIn post. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, and a
Okay.
lot of my experience, just to give some other examples to the group, is when I've done presentations and I'll go out and do these different presentations with groups, I'll also do a post about it and then I put it in my featured. So it's kind of like my living, breathing portfolio. People can go and see the different type of presentations that I've done as well. That does get a lot of engagement. And I know I've built my brand up to like, I don't know, 60 times or something, the number of people I used to have in my network. So it does work.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Just posting and engaging, and like you said, like highlighting things that you do is the best way. Your LinkedIn should be your living, breathing portfolio in a way. But yeah, I mean, fantastic points. And yeah, I hope my answer was slightly helpful. Again, sometimes you just got to be creative with it. Every single person is going to find a way that works best for them. Be different, be unique. And if something doesn't feel right to you, just don't do it. Always listen to what you think is right, especially as a designer. The way you present yourself is in and of itself part of your portfolio. The portfolio style you do is part of your portfolio. If you're designing a website, that's part of your portfolio. I think we've
don't
got a
think
couple more.
Is it better to focus on a few big and multi-skilled projects or many one-skill projects for the portfolio?
That's being a generalist or being a specialist. You got to know yourself best and what you want. I would say put it all on there. Highlight it all, right? Like on a portfolio, if it's a website, you can hide certain pages, you can hide certain chunks of your website, have it all on there. And as you evolve, you might realize maybe you don't want the big multi-skill projects anymore. Generally, I would stick everything on it. And even if it's not there, you've got to have at least a Word doc on your computer, even a notebook that has all of this. Because you don't know when you're going to look back in a couple of years and be like, that big multi-skill project is exactly the right thing for right now. So keep it documented, keep it written down, even if you're not highlighting it, have like a personal version of your portfolio that you can reference, that if you need to add it, you can just pop it on real quick. So go through the PAR method, add those data points, and then save it. Whether you need it today or in 10 years, it's really great to have, and also just read through before interviews. So yes, I would add both. I would fill it out as much as you can, put yourself in the best light, because when you're applying to a lot of different jobs, depending on the environment, they want to see it all.